You know, if you drop a human being into a digital world and just give them absolute unrestricted freedom to do whatever they want, they usually just freeze.
Oh, yeah. They get completely paralyzed.
Right. Welcome to today's deep dive. Whether you are a designer prepping for a massive project or you're just, insanely curious about why you physically cannot put a controller down at 2 in the morning, well, this is for you.
Because we typically think of freedom as the ultimate ideal, right? Like no limits, no boundaries.
Exactly. But in an interactive space, pure freedom is actually terrifying.
It creates this massive cognitive load. I mean, when you can do anything,
Hmm.
you end up doing nothing because the brain just, it doesn't know how to prioritize.
Yeah.
So to fix that paralysis, you need structure, which brings us to the core compass of literally any interactive experience.
Game goals. And that is our mission today. We are tearing through a massive stack of sources today, course modules on game design theory, case studies from hit RPGs and indie games, insightful design blogs, and even external lectures from industry veterans like Extra Credits and Jesse Schell. It's a lot of ground to cover.
It is. But we are unpacking exactly how designers structure short-term versus long-term objectives to maintain your momentum and keep you hooked. And
Yeah.
there is a pretty bold statement from the research that kind of anchors this entire conversation.
Right, the sandbox quote.
Yes. A game without a goal isn't a game. It's just a sandbox.
And that distinction is crucial. Without a goal, you are engaging in play, sure, but you aren't playing a game. Think about the foundational concept in game design theory called the magic circle.
Oh, I love this concept.
It's so good. It's basically this psychological space we enter where we voluntarily accept arbitrary rules and constraints purely for the sake of trying to achieve a goal.
Right. And the track race analogy the sources use for this is just perfect. Think about a 200-meter dash. If the literal only goal is to get from point A to point B faster than the other runners, the smartest, most efficient thing to do is to just step off the track, cut straight across the grassy infield, and wait at the finish line.
But nobody does that.
No, because if you cut across the grass, you immediately recognize that you aren't running a race anymore. The willingness to overcome unnecessary obstacles to reach an objective that actually is the essence of the game. That is the magic circle.
You accept the boundary of the track because the boundary gives the goal its meaning.
Precisely.
Okay, let's unpack this because it perfectly illustrates the difference between a toy and a game. One of the design blogs we looked at uses Minecraft to explain this shift.
Which is a brilliant example.
It really is. If you boot up Minecraft in creative mode, you have unlimited blocks, you can fly, you can't die, and you can build anything. That is a toy. It's an interaction without a defined goal.
Yeah, you're just messing around.
Right. But the second you switch to survival mode, where you have a health bar, you have to find food, and, zombies come out when the sun goes down, that adds immediate conflict. It forces a structure.
And suddenly that toy becomes a game.
Ex-
And that structure acts as fundamental player guidance. A well-designed game goal essentially answers three continuous looping questions for the player. What am I trying to do? How do I know if I'm succeeding? And what should I focus on next?
It's constant feedback.
Yeah, strong goals shape player intention without actually removing their agency. They just narrow the focus. I mean, early goals in a game are usually disguised tutorials. They teach you the mechanics under the guise of a mission. And then later goals test your mastery of those same mechanics.
It's like, okay, imagine I hand you the keys to a ridiculously fast sports car. It's got a full tank of gas, but there are absolutely no roads.
It's just a flat plane.
Exactly. There's no track, no destination, no lap timer, just a massive, flat, endless concrete expanse. It's incredibly fun to do donuts and max out the engine for about 5 minutes. But then what?
You get profoundly bored.
You do. The car is the mechanic, but without a road, without the goal, there's no game.
And that lack of a road is exactly what causes player drop-off. So the challenge for a designer isn't just creating a single goal. It's sustaining that player intention over an absurd amount of time. I mean, people will easily spend 80 or 100 hours inside these digital worlds.
Which is wild when you think about it. How do designers keep you in that magic circle for 80 hours without you realizing it's just a repetitive chore? Because let's face it, most gameplay loops are just doing the same 3 actions over and over again.
Right. And they achieve that through layered goals. This is the architecture of moving from the micro to the macro.
Okay, break that down for us.
The classic RPG archetype perfectly illustrates this structure. So your immediate short-term goal is, say, kill 10 rats in the cellar.
The classic rat quest.
Always rats. Then your midterm goal is defeat the Dark Knight terrorizing the village. And your long-term goal is save the kingdom.
But the psychological trick is that the player needs to know why they are killing the rats. It can't just be an isolated chore. Killing the rats gets you the gold buys the better sword lets you fight the knight, and defeating the knight saves the kingdom. Because of layered goals, every single swing of the sword at a tiny rat is infused with the epic macro-level meaning of saving the world.
This layered structure is the absolute ultimate defense against player burnout.
Yeah.
It's the difference between meaningful goals and arbitrary ones. Let's examine the case study the course modules provide on Stardew Valley.
Oh man, the ultimate time sink. I have lost weeks of my life to that game.
You and millions of others. In Stardew Valley, you are dropped into a messy, overgrown patch of land with zero money. The implicit long-term goal is to build an incredible, sprawling, highly profitable farm.
Right.
But reaching that goal takes hours and hours of incredibly repetitive manual toil. You're individually watering crops, one tile at a time, every single in-game morning.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if you look at human behavior, we actively avoid chores in our real lives. I mean, I will put off folding my laundry or doing the dishes for 3 days.
Oh, absolutely.
But in Stardew Valley, we will happily harvest virtual corn and water digital tomatoes for 6 straight hours. Why? Because the layered goals are structured so perfectly.
You don't even notice the grind.
Exactly. You are grinding those short-term goals, like gathering just enough wood to upgrade your house or collecting specific crops for the community center, and it completely masks the grind.
Because you are being propelled by the intrinsic reward of exponential growth. The course actually compares it to a game like Factorio.
Oh, yeah.
In both games, you start by digging up resources manually. But because of your layered goals, you soon buy better tools. You install sprinklers that water the crops for you. You build conveyor belts to automate the hard work. You aren't just doing chores, you are creating and optimizing a system.
It's the exact same psychology behind skill trees in massive action games.
Yeah.
You are ticking off these tiny short-term skill points, grinding out the tedious work to earn them, purely because your brain is fantasizing about that long-term goal where you finally unlock the ultimate ability and just absolutely wreck shop.
What's fascinating here is how this architecture ties directly into flow theory.
By Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, right?
Yes, exactly. He mapped out human engagement on a chart. On the y-axis, you have the challenge of a task. On the x-axis, you have the person's skill level. Flow is that magical state where you completely lose track of time.
When you just zone in.
Right. But it exists in a very narrow diagonal channel on that chart. If a goal is way too difficult for your current skill, you fall out of the channel into anxiety and frustration.
Makes sense.
But if the goal is too easy, you fall out into boredom. Layered goals are the engine that drives you up that channel. They give you constant, achievable micro goals to match your growing skill while constantly pointing toward a more challenging macro goal.
Okay, so layered goals make perfect sense on paper for keeping you in the flow state. But when I'm actually playing, I'm not looking at a spreadsheet of my macro and micro goals.
No, of course not.
So how does the game subtly tell my brain that I'm doing the right thing in real time? Because a goal is completely useless if you don't know you're making progress.
Well, that is where the system has to talk back to you. It's all about feedback loops. The game needs to communicate the state of your goals constantly, and designers primarily use 2 types of loops to guide you: positive feedback loops and negative feedback loops.
And we should clarify for the listener, positive and negative here don't mean good and bad in a moral sense. It's just math.
Precisely. A positive feedback loop is about compounding changes. It creates exponential growth. Think of the board game Monopoly,
Oh, the friendship ender.
the very one. You buy a property, which earns you rent, which gives you more money to buy more properties, earning you more rent. Or in a video game, you win a match, you get stronger weapons, which makes it easier to win the next match. Positive loops push a game toward a conclusion so it doesn't just stalemate forever.
But if the game only relies on positive loops, the winner just stays winning, the gap widens, and everyone else gets crushed and quits. Which brings in the negative feedback loop. And the absolute best example of this from our sources is the blue shell in Mario Kart.
The infamous blue shell is a pure balancing loop.
It is infuriating when it hits you. I mean, you're in first place, you're driving a flawless race, and suddenly this unavoidable explosive shell drops on your head and stops you dead in your tracks.
But structurally, it is brilliant design.
Right. It's a negative feedback loop that specifically targets the person succeeding the most. It pulls them back to the pack to maintain tension and keep the goal winning the race competitive for everyone else on the track.
It creates necessary drama. But feedback isn't just about these large systemic structural loops. It's also deeply rooted in moment-to-moment micro-goals. This is where we get into game feel, or what designers affectionately call juice.
Okay, I want to ask you, the listener, a direct question. Think about your absolute favorite action game. How much of your deep satisfaction was actually achieving the goal, like defeating a boss, and how much of it was just the flashing lights, the massive sound effects, and the screen shaking violently to tell you that you did a good job?
A profound question. And the sources highlight a masterclass on this exact phenomenon by Jan Willem Nijman from the indie studio Vlambeer.
Oh, this was such a cool case study.
Yeah, he demonstrated a basic, completely boring prototype of shooting a generic square on a screen. Then he incrementally added juice, he added screen shake, he made the bullets visually larger.
And the coolest trick, he added a piece of code called hit stop. It's a command that pauses the entire game for just 20 milliseconds, the exact moment a bullet hits an enemy.
Barely a blink.
Right. Your conscious mind doesn't even register that the game froze, but your subconscious processes it as physical impact. It hacks your brain's perception of friction. In real life, hitting something solid stops momentum. The game fakes that physics by literally stopping time for a fraction of a second, giving the micro goal of hitting the target immense satisfying weight.
That sensory feedback is what gives the arbitrary goal its meaning. And this concept applies heavily to game AI as well, because the great secret of game AI is that its primary goal is not to beat the player.
Wait, really?
Yeah. I mean, if the computer actually wanted to beat you, it could just perfectly calculate a headshot through a wall the exact millisecond you spawn.
Right. The AI is essentially a stagehand. Its real goal is to lose gracefully.
Exactly. Its goal is to create believable behavior that provides a curated obstacle course. The AI is there to support your progression and the dramatic tension of your layered goals. When you combine all of this, the stagehand AI, the balancing feedback loops, the 20-millisecond screen shake, the game elevates into a cybernetic system.
A cybernetic system?
Yeah, it's essentially a digital organism that measures your behavior, makes decisions based on that behavior, and adapts the environment to ensure your intention succeeds while keeping you in the flow state.
It is incredible engineering. We are voluntarily stepping into these cybernetic systems and letting them guide our psychology for hours on end. But what happens when these incredibly powerful tools, layered goals, feedback loops, flow states are taken out of the magic circle of a video game and weaponized in the real world?
Now, this is where the research crosses into the ethics of goals and the increasingly blurred line between serious games, gamification, and propaganda.
Okay, let's start with gamification, because this is literally everywhere now. It's the practice of layering points, badges, and leaderboards over real-world reality.
And the underlying danger here is highlighted by Alfie Kohn's research in his book Punished by Rewards. When you take a meaningful activity and layer extrinsic bribes over it, like giving a kid a gold star or 5 digital points every time they read a book, you can actually destroy their intrinsic motivation. It triggers something called the overjustification effect.
Which is wild. How does the brain do that?
The brain is just incredibly efficient. Once it realizes it's getting paid to do something, it deletes its own internal desire to do it. It categorizes the activity purely as work.
Wow.
Yeah. Once the gold stars stop, the kid stops wanting to read. You've conditioned them to chase the arbitrary goal of the reward rather than the meaningful activity of reading.
And the stakes get so much higher when we look at the course materials analysis of propaganda games. Now, the sources dig into some politically charged games here, like America's Army and other recruitment or ideological titles. And just as a quick caveat for you listening, our goal here isn't to take a political stance or endorse any specific viewpoint.
Absolutely not.
We are strictly looking at this impartially through the lens of a game designer. We want to understand how designers use mechanics to influence behavior.
Right. And the analytical point the sources make is about how these systems can incentivize actions without the player ever questioning the why. We need to talk about B.F. Skinner and operant conditioning.
The famous Skinner box.
Exactly. Skinner put rats in a box where they would press a lever and occasionally get a food pellet. He proved you can train behavior purely through immediate satisfying feedback.
You don't need to explain the philosophy to the rat. You just need to give it a pellet when it hits the lever.
Precisely. When a video game uses those exact Skinner box techniques, satisfying feedback loops, immediate rewards, clear micro goals to incentivize shooting a specific real-world demographic or joining a specific real-world organization, it completely bypasses critical thinking.
You pull the digital trigger because the screen flashes, the controller rumbles, and the game rewards you with a satisfying sound effect.
Right. You aren't asked to consider the moral weight of the action, you are just chasing the next micro goal.
It's hacking your biological desire for a clear goal and positive feedback. Which brings us to the lecture by Jesse Schell and his vision of what he calls the gamepocalypse.
Such a great term.
It really is. This is a future where literally every second of our waking lives is gamified.
And this isn't science fiction anymore. Schell points to the real-world proliferation of these systems. He gives examples of Wi-Fi-connected toothbrushes that track your brushing habits. If you hit the 3-minute goal, you get a smiley face and reward points subsidized by toothpaste corporations.
He also talked about augmented reality cereal boxes giving you points for eating and getting achievement unlocks for reading books on a Kindle. But the Kindle actively tracks your eye movements to ensure you actually read every single word before it deposits the points into your account.
It is a world where every daily task, no matter how mundane, is tied to a progress bar, tracked by a biometric sensor, and monetized by a corporation.
So what does this all mean? Because I'm going to push back a little here. It is very easy to paint this as a terrifying dystopian nightmare. But consider this, if I have a digital personal trainer on my wrist that makes a satisfying ding when I walk 10,000 steps, or an app that gives me points and discounts for taking the bus instead of driving a gas-guzzling car, isn't that potentially making my life and the world better?
That's a fair point.
I mean, if gamification can actually get us to exercise and actively reduce our carbon footprint, maybe gamifying our lives is a beautiful thing.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the true danger the course outlines isn't necessarily the technology itself. The danger is what they call lazy design.
Lazy design.
Yeah. When a designer, whether they work for a massive game studio, an advertising agency, or a government, forces an arbitrary goal on you and uses these deeply powerful psychological loops to keep you chasing it, who is really in control?
Oh, wow.
Are you expressing your autonomy? Or are you just a human in a Skinner box, pressing a lever because a corporation figured out exactly which frequency of flashing lights makes you crave their specific brand of sugar water?
Wow. That really reframes the whole concept of setting an objective. We started this deep dive talking about how incredible it is that we can enter a magic circle, accept arbitrary rules, and find immense, genuine joy in structured play.
Yeah, we explored how layered short-term and long-term goals can keep us completely locked in a state of flow, turning virtual chores into an absolute blast.
We covered a lot of ground today, from the 20-millisecond screen shake that hacks your brain into feeling impact, to the balancing brilliance of the blue shell, all the way to the heavy ethical responsibility of deploying these goal-setting systems in the real world.
It's a lot to process.
It really makes you look at every progress bar on your phone differently, doesn't it? And hey, if you want to apply these concepts, whether you are actively designing a game, building an app, or honestly just trying to organize your own daily tasks, you should definitely grab the goal-setting template available for students over at school.thegamebeyond.com. It is a fantastic tool to actually see these layered structures in action.
I think the most vital takeaway from all these sources is recognizing the sheer power of the systems we interact with every single day.
Absolutely.
And this raises an important question to leave you with. As our real lives become increasingly filled with progress bars, health apps, and corporate loyalty points, take a hard look at the Save the Kingdom goals you're chasing right now. Are they genuinely your own dreams? Or are they just a beautifully designed feedback loop created by someone else?
That is the ultimate question. Because if you aren't defining your own goals, you might just be wandering in someone else's sandbox. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.
Do you want to learn more about game design? Try our game design course. Go from learning the basics to becoming a master game designer. No coding skills needed. Taught by award-winning game designer Gabe Mack, this course is filled with hours of videos, puzzles, tools and exercises to turn you into a serious game designer. Why are you waiting to harness the power of play? Visit school.thegamebeyond.com to sign up today.